Florida. On July 13th, 2022, a call is received by emergency responders at 911.
911, what's the address of the emergency? Tell me exactly what happened.
As soon as you open the door to Kayla's apartment is a lot of blood.
Kayla had 37 wounds.
The homicide itself appeared impulsive to me. It was definitely planned. It was premeditated. I could tell you that it was extremely violent. It just showed me that this person was just out of control.
With no signs of forced entry, detectives uncover surveillance, finding a masked figure waiting in the shadows for hours.
They're walking around trying to find Kayla's apartment for hours.
And witness statements are able to provide even more information.
I heard a knock at the door, so I looked through the peephole. I seen there was a woman.
We know it's a black female we're looking at. We have some theories that she's wearing a New York Yankees hat. Maybe she's from New York. I couldn't register why this girl in New York is popping up as a suspect on a scene here in Tamarack, Florida. It didn't register what would drive a person to fly down here and do this to someone. This was a vicious attack that she did to this victim.
Investigators have a suspect from out of state and a murdered young woman. They need to find the killer, build a case, and see justice served. Tamarack is a small city just outside of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, located within the greater metro area.
Tamarack is in the northwest portion of Broward County, and it's a diverse area. In a sense, it's always known as where a lot of retirees would be. Over the years, it's slowly diversified itself in age. There's now younger groups going in, new buildings going up.
Tamarack is perfect for new families, retirees, startup businesses.
Overall, it's considered a pretty safe area of the county.
It was rated number 49 on the top 50 cities in all of Florida to be the safest.
Living in Tamarack is 23-year-old Kayla Hodgson, along with her mother and her dog, Dior.
Kayla Hodgson was a young girl living her life, just wanted to enjoy being 23, working at Bardolls as a bartender and bottle service girl. She got to travel a lot. Family said that she was very kind. She'd give you the shirt off her back if you needed it. She was sweet, family-oriented, and if you were having a bad day, that's who you wanted to call to make it better.
She was somebody that, from what I gathered from talking to friends and family, if they needed something or they had a bad day, they'd call her. She would make it better. So she was someone special to all of them. There was something that stood out about her. You could really see that through talking with her mom or family.
At 11 a.m. on July 13th, the Broward County Sheriff's Office received an alarming call from a man named Revelto Robinson about an incident at the address of Kayla Hodgson.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
Oh, ma'am, I don't know the address. I just came. I could go downstairs and check. 1 second, please.
Revelto Robinson was a gentleman that Kayla was dating, and Revelto is the one who found Kayla deceased in her apartment and who was the one who called 911.
He had stopped by to check on her. She just got back from a trip to New York. He had seen her the night prior, and he was coming back by 11 o'clock a.m. He tried to reach her by phone, which was odd. She wasn't answering. He went to the apartment. She wasn't answering the door. He said the first thing that kind of clued him in there was an issue was she has a small dog in the apartment, and usually it would be at the door barking. It's never kept anywhere else. He said it sounded like the dog was barking in the distance, like almost locked in a bedroom. That just seemed strange to him.
I didn't see her car in the parking lot, so I come upstairs
from the staircase that you just came from. I come up, I knock on the door, I'm banging on the door. I hear her dog, but I don't hear her. So I'm like, all right, maybe she's not home because I don't see her car.
He had left, gone to a nearby store, and when he returned, he noticed her car was there this time. He hadn't seen it before, so he knew that she was most likely home. He knocked on the door some more. He was concerned, so he tried the doorknob, tried yelling in, and he found the door unlocked, which was very unusual. Between the dog in the bedroom and the door unlocked, he stepped in, and that's when he discovered her, right inside the doorway, which triggered him to call 911.
It's tricky when 911 operators answer a call because they never know what they're being faced with because they're over the phone and they can't see the scene. The 911 operator believed that Kayla was a person that could be saved. And so because of that, the 911 operator gave Revelto instructions to perform CPR.
I didn't even want to turn her neck or anything. I didn't really see the kind of wound it was, if it was a slash or if it was a stab wound, I didn't see.
Revelto, obviously in a state of shock, believed that this was something that he should do, and he touched Kayla in order to start the CPR, but then there was blood that was coming out of her neck. And so it was clear to him, to be clear to the 911 operator, that this wasn't something that he was going to be able to perform on Kayla.
Law enforcement officers are dispatched to the scene to see if anything can be done to save Kayla. But sadly, she's pronounced dead upon their arrival.
The first initial law enforcement response are usually road patrol officers. And so they will call in the detectives from homicide to respond and assess the scene.
I got the phone call to come out and take the lead for this case. I got there about an hour after everybody else did. We still hadn't really made entry into the house yet. As soon as you open the door to Kayla's apartment is a lot of blood and Kayla.
The first responders that arrived on scene met the 911 caller, who was frantic. He wasn't even sure the location he was at. He had ran outside to meet them. So I remember one of the first things that was conveyed to me was that they saw bloody footprints coming down the hallway, and that's because the 911 caller had been inside trying to help Kayla do CPR. The injuries to Kayla were mainly concentrated on her left portion of her neck and her hands. A lot of it was along her left side.
Kayla had 37 wounds to her.
The homicide itself appeared impulsive to me. It was definitely planned. It was premeditated. The injuries to Kayla, how this fight took place, I don't know if the suspect thought this through or not, but I can tell you that it was extremely violent. How sporadic the injuries were along her left side, it just showed me that this person was just out of control.
The injuries that she sustained tells me that she sustained it from a sharp object. There was quite a bit of glass in there. If it was a knife, you'd see serrations, you would see injuries consistent with a knife wound.
There's a glass hookah bottle kept on the kitchen counter that was smashed on the floor near where this fight took place. When Chris and his team were processing the scene, they informed me that a lot of that bottle was missing. And when the medical examiner did the autopsy, they were able to tell us that the stab wounds were of a sharp object. They weren't certain that they were a knife, so there's a good possibility a lot of those may have been inflicted upon Kayla with the glass from the hookah bottle.
In order to build a picture of the events leading up to Kayla's murder, investigators begin by tracing her steps.
On the day Kayla was murdered, she did work. There was a place called the Spot Lounge in the city of Lauderhill, which is nearby where she lived, not too far away. It was only a couple miles east of where she was residing. She got home roughly about 4 a.m. Last video we have of her coming into the building is her walking up the steps, and she just looks like somebody that had been working all night, kind of tired, carrying her stuff. We see her go up the steps, and it's the last time anybody saw her alive. All we know is that when she got in the apartment, she did change out of the work clothes she was wearing, put on like a nightgown, and at some point the suspect arrived and most likely made contact with her at the front door.
Detectives must now shift their focus to potential suspects, starting with Revelto.
Till we know what really happened, everyone's considered a suspect. We don't know the circumstances. We just know that, unfortunately, our victim's gone. She's deceased, and he's the first person to come in contact with her. If we weren't looking at him, we wouldn't be doing our due diligence.
How do you know her?
That's like my girlfriend. We've been messing around for like over a year now.
They're looking at his clothes. He was wearing a white tank top. He had absolutely no blood on him, except for maybe a little bit on his palm.
Okay. So you've been dating her for about a year?
Yes.
Are you her only boyfriend?
I have no idea.
Okay,
Just
no
messing
problem.
around.
Okay. And for about a year.
Yes.
How did you meet her?
We met at a party through mutual friends.
Okay.
One of her friends deals with one of my friends.
We definitely have to speak to him, kind of feel him out, see what he knows and what he doesn't know.
We can do it and get it done now and then give the phones right back to
Okay.
you. We're not looking at anything. I don't care what your business is, whatever you do on the side means nothing. All we care about is solving who did this to her. So the easiest way
That's
for
fine.
us to
That's fine.
exclude you out of
Yeah,
it
that's fine.
is
That's fine. Do whatever you got to do, man.
In this case, he was very forthcoming. He gave us access to his vehicle, gave us access to his cell phones. He was an open book for us. I think he knew as well that we were probably going to look at him. So his cooperation in that aspect was very helpful.
He had no scars. He had no blood on him. So clearly, unless he changed real quick, he couldn't have been the perpetrator.
Forensic teams arrive on site, meticulously scouring the scene for evidence.
After we do our initial photographs, we do our initial processing of Kayla, the real work begins. That is to start catching up to our killer. We took some photos of all the evidence that we found on the outside, which was blood. You want to make sure that you can collect so we can identify whose blood that is. It very well may not be related, or it could be related. Nobody knows. Photograph it all in place, swab it, process it with chemicals so that we can enhance it. We used a chemical called leucocrystal-violet, LCV, and that chemical, it's attracted to the hemoglobin in blood, and it will bring out footprint or footwear impression. If that's on the bottom and it was transferred to the sidewalk, the leucocrystal-violet would bring that out. We did quite a lot of processing. We're basically looking for the footwear impressions. We're looking to see if that later on down the road, if that footwear impression matches the same footwear that a possible suspect could be wearing.
Investigators also conduct interviews with Kayla's neighbors to determine if anyone saw anything suspicious.
Initially, Detective Kuchler did a canvas, and what a canvas is where the detectives will go on scene. If it's an apartment complex like this was, they will knock on doors. They will ask neighbors, have you seen anything?
So it's around like 2:30 maybe. I heard a knock at the door, so I looked through the peephole. I seen there was a woman, and she was kind of standing off to your left side, but my right. When I opened the door and I poked my head out, she was talking to me. She was kind of not looking, like she was looking, but like over her shoulder.
If they see a surveillance camera affixed to your door, they'll ask you to review the footage. And so there were two neighbors that gave law enforcement access to footage, and detectives were able to see the suspect going back and forth on the hallway.
You see her roaming around the apartment, and that was color footage where she's there walking around, presumably trying to find Kayla's apartment for hours.
Investigators believe the masked woman is involved in Kayla's murder. Their immediate priority is identifying the woman caught on camera and uncovering a possible motive. The Broward County Sheriff's Office is investigating the murder of 23-year-old Kayla Hodgson, who was found stabbed to death in her apartment on July 13, 2022, in what was evidently a violent struggle. Detectives are trying to identify a masked woman captured on CCTV stalking the apartment block in the hours leading up to the killing.
The property where Kayla lived, it was a newer complex, very well lit up, had amazing video surveillance. Our suspect was masked up, wearing all black clothing, but there was still enough detail that we could pick out. With the footage, we're able to sort of narrow in on a suspect. We know it's a black female we're looking at. We have some theories that she's wearing a New York Yankees hat. Maybe she's from New York. She's wearing a Nipsey Hussle designer jacket. Maybe she's a fan of his. And once we started talking to Kayla's friends, they did point us in the direction of this female, Sakina Thompson.
I'm saying on her top there's a picture of her.
Yeah, that's her.
And it's underneath Shaki, it says Sakina as the actual Instagram page.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was able to get on her Instagram. It was an open public Instagram at the time. So able to get on there, and I started going through each picture, trying to pick out details, much like I did with the CCTV footage. And pretty quickly, I realized those are the same shoes my suspect is wearing, a pair of Prada shoes, very specific. One of the things I also noticed was this left pinky finger. She's got a tattoo on it. So now things are really starting to register, and I think we're on the right track. I had also seen on the surveillance footage, there was an image where the suspect flips over her screen of her cell phone. You can see the wallpaper. It shows a black female wearing all black. On the Sakina Thompson's Instagram page, she's holding her hands out to the side with her cell phone in her right hand, and there's that same image, the same wallpaper on her cell phone.
So the screensaver on her phone matched what was on the Instagram.
I knew the person I was looking at was most likely Sakina Thompson. We were able to write search warrants and get some more information on where her cell phone had traveled. I was able to place her cell phone at a hotel in the city of Fort Lauderdale, not too far from where the victim's apartment was, only a few miles, maybe 3 miles away.
And so as they continued to work the case and putting the pieces of the puzzle together, they knew that she was from New York. And once they were able to identify a flight that she flew down from New York to Fort Lauderdale, they obtained surveillance from the Fort Lauderdale airport. So we had surveillance from her getting off of her flight from the gate. We had surveillance of her going outside of the airport and taking a rideshare service. We had surveillance of her going to and checking into the hotel, the Plaza Hotel that she checked into.
They were able to literally follow her exact trail, except for how she got from the hotel to the apartment complex. That one took them some time, but it came to find out the only reason they couldn't find how she actually got to the Village Apartments and then back to the Plaza Hotel was because she was using fake names, other people's names. And she used 2 different names. She didn't even use the same name both ways.
I couldn't register why this girl in New York is popping up as a suspect on a scene here in Tamarack, Florida. It didn't register what would drive a person to fly down here and do this to someone. This was a vicious attack that she did to this victim.
While investigators pieced together Sakina Thompson's movements before Kayla's murder, the forensic team receives lab results.
Swabs that were taken from Kayla's fingernails. The DNA came back to a female subject. And once Sakina Thompson was extradited here to Florida, we got a warrant to take her DNA.
We took some swabs of Kayla's fingernails. We got a hit on a DNA match for the suspect. That would tell us that the suspect was fighting and the victim was fighting back. Any time that you touch something, you're transferring your DNA to that item. The best part about fingernails is they have beds, so it's underneath. So you're gonna store it, if you will, and we'll come in and scoop it all out with our swabs. You don't have to have a whole lot of DNA anymore. So that little bit that was under there of epithelial cells was able to generate a match.
By getting a DNA hit on the suspect, confirm what we already knew, that she had put up a fight, tried to fend off this attacker, and having that was a nail in the coffin for our suspect. We knew she was there, we knew her cell phone was there, we just needed to put that one little bit of evidence to get her inside that apartment, and they were able to get that for us. Ultimately, with all that information, I drafted an arrest warrant for her. She was still residing in New York at the time, so my supervisor and I traveled to New York, and we were attempting to take her into custody up there. We didn't have as much luck up there with tracking at the time, flew back to South Florida, and then turned it over to the U.S. Marshals. They have a lot more leeway as far as jurisdiction where they can go and who they can stay on track of, and they were able to assist us and take her into custody. She showed no reaction. Throughout my investigation, I've seen no remorse from her, no sympathy, nothing. I've gotten the impression she just doesn't seem to be bothered by it almost.
With Sakina Thompson in custody on suspicion of Kayla Hodgson's murder, the investigation shifts from who carried out the killing to why she traveled across the country to do it.
Kayla was a very attractive female. She got a lot of attention, especially working in the bar scene. So you're going to have a lot of men that are interested. It turned out that she did have quite a few men in and out of her life.
Kayla, she's a young girl in her 20s. She's working in these entertainment industries as bottle services. She gets a lot of attention. Her friends would tell us that all the guys were trying to date Kayla. They'd offer money, want to take her on trips, all these things. Sometimes she almost found that amusing. Obviously, anyone likes the attention, but she didn't let it go to her head. She kind of kept to herself and stayed with her friends. But she would go on dates with some of them or some of these guys, but I don't think she was overly serious with any one person. She was still trying to live her life as a young girl, traveling and working and just being herself.
Through interviews with Kayla's best friend, Janessa Tate, investigators were able to piece together her final weeks, discovering that she had recently grown close to a man named Terry.
Janessa was Kayla's very best friend. They were so close that Janessa was the only person that knew that Kayla had any type of interactions with Terry.
Sakina was dating Terry as well.
Kayla's relationship with Terry, we just know that they met around sometime in 2020.
The first meeting of Terry and Kayla was at a club actually in New York.
She was up there to celebrate a friend's birthday. She flew up with several of her friends from South Florida, met up with more friends up there. From what I gathered, they went out, they partied, they went to different bars, restaurants. She flew back on July 9th. From what we could determine is there was no issues while she was there. We did later learn that she had met up with him there and spent some time with him, and turns out that that male was also dating Sakina Thompson. It was nothing big, she just talked to him. But that very first night, we do know that the suspect, Sakina, messaged Kayla after seeing an image of her apparently standing too close to Terry. So right from the start of their meeting up, her and Kayla and Terry, Sakina was already with the messages through Instagram.
Kayla, when she would receive a threatening message from the defendant, she would screenshot it and she would send it to her best friend, Janessa. The first message that the defendant sent to Kayla was asking her to call her. When Kayla responded, "What is this about?" the defendant then responded asking if she was dating or dealing with the guy with the braids in the club. And that's when Kayla blocked her. Kayla never engaged further with communication on Instagram.
Kayla thought blocking the account was the end of the harassment, but for Sakina Thompson, it was only the beginning. As the investigation would soon reveal, Sakina had spent the next 2 years planning revenge. On July 13th, 2022, Kayla Hodgson was found brutally murdered in her Florida apartment. CCTV captured a masked woman, later identified as Sakina Thompson, stalking the hallways for hours before the attack, and forensic evidence directly linked her to the bloodied scene. The motive for the murder traced back to an encounter back in 2020 in New York. Kayla blocked her and moved on, but for Sakina, the conflict never ended.
As time went on, she would find other ways to message her. She then moved to WhatsApp.
This was approximately in December because the defendant was going through Terry's phone and she found a message that Kayla had sent Terry. And in that message, there were just a lot of threats calling her stupid, that she's a dummy, just antagonizing her for dealing with Terry. The next set of messages came when Kayla had been in contact with Terry again, and Terry had taken her out, and Kayla had sent him a message asking if he was home safe. And so once again, the defendant was going through Terry's phone, saw the message, and this time sent Kayla a message from Terry's phone.
The only time she would ever respond is when Kayla was texting Terry and Sakina was there. And then she could take Terry's phone and respond, and then obviously Kayla was going to respond to that.
This was the first time that Kayla had ever responded, and it was just one message that she responded, because this time it's coming from Terry's phone. So now she knows that not only is the defendant, finding ways to contact her through social media, but now she's actually taking Terry's phone and now contacting her from Terry's phone.
I think she was frustrated that this woman just wouldn't talk to her. I think it might have came down to a respect thing. Like, this is my man, you need to respect me. But the thing is, they were off and on all the time. And this wasn't the only woman that he was doing this with. But Terry cheated on Sakina a lot. So it's kind of odd that Kayla would be the one that she would definitely feel like she had to go do something about. Were you gonna go after all of these girls? It just didn't make any sense. But she was fixated. She was literally obsessed with Kayla.
Kayla wasn't necessarily focused on Terry. I think he definitely had an interest in Kayla. But I don't know that Kayla thought that she was involved in this triangle by any means. I think that this was mostly the defendant and her threat. I believe that the defendant did feel threatened by Kayla.
I believe it was jealousy based on booking a flight to come down. I don't really see a purpose of confronting somebody over 3 hours away on a plane. It's obsessive. It's one of those sins, jealousy.
I think all of those injuries on Kayla's face were because she was a beautiful girl. And I think she wanted to destroy that beauty. I think she knew that not only did her man want Kayla, but a lot of other men wanted Kayla as well. And that just didn't sit good. Did not sit good at all with Sakina. Sakina definitely decided to do the unthinkable that day. She booked this flight just the day before this happened. So clearly she was in a rage, or she wanted her gone. She wanted her out of the picture.
It was based off of Sakina Thompson's jealousy of Kayla and her relationship with Terry. And what I did learn through investigating Sakina, Terry, and Kayla, this wasn't the first time he had cheated on her.
It's like a routine with them. Like, they had an understanding. Whenever he would go out of town to go see the girlfriend, or the girlfriend would come into town, they wouldn't speak.
Okay.
And then as soon as he gets back in town or the girlfriend leaves, the first place he goes is by Kayla.
Okay. They'd broken up a few times over different incidents. This wasn't unusual for him to have cheated on her. What drove her to pick Kayla to be the person that she would do this to because of his actions? This was her boyfriend cheating on her.
It comes to find out that Sakina was actually 11 weeks pregnant. So I don't know if by being pregnant by Terry was also a motive, because she's like, okay, we're going to be a family now. But he was never going to be a family with you. If he was going to be a family with you, he would have already done it.
In the days following Kayla Hodgson's murder, her family and the Tamarack community reacted with shock and grief.
You can't share too much. You know we want to. You can't share too much.
Please. Can I see my cousin, please?
So I'm gonna take the with the branch sheriff's office.
Oh my God, she's dead.
Very sorry for your loss.
What I learned about Kayla through talking with mostly her mom was she was a young girl. She was in her early 20s. She was traveling a lot. She was partying, having fun, just seeing the world and living her life.
Kayla was loved. So when they talked to friends, family, neighbors, even if she didn't really have a relationship with them, they would say it. She was always nice. She would smile. She was cordial.
As far as Kayla's friendships go, obviously I don't get to meet them all, but you could see the love and support just from during the investigation.
She never knew that anyone would love someone to the extent or be jealous of her to the extent to want to murder her in the most tragic way.
Armed with digital and forensic evidence placing Sakina Thompson at the scene, investigators moved to formally charge her with Kayla's murder.
When the lead detective, Ian Kuchler, believed that he had enough for an arrest warrant, they submitted the arrest warrant affidavit to me, and I reviewed it, and the case was assigned to me, and I took the case to grand jury, and I worked with Detective Kuchler to get the case ready to present to the grand jury for an indictment. Once we obtained an indictment for murder in the first degree, Sakina Thompson had already flown to New York, and so there was a warrant for her arrest, and detectives went to New York to secure her and to execute the warrant, and she was extradited here to Florida. And from there, we started the discovery process.
Our suspect, Sakina Thompson, resides in New York. She's also originally from Jamaica. She's a Jamaican citizen. She was staying here. She lives in the Queens area of New York. Her family's in that area as well. I did learn through the arrest process that when she was taken into custody, she was pregnant at the time. She was approximately 11 weeks pregnant.
Sakina Thompson's trial is set to begin on October 21st, 2024. The question is now whether the prosecution secured justice for Kayla. Sakina Thompson's trial for the 2022 murder of 23-year-old Kayla Hodgson in Tamarack, Florida, is due to commence on October 21st, 2024. Prosecutors assert that Thompson flew from New York to South Florida days before the killing, allegedly motivated by jealousy over Kayla dating her ex-boyfriend.
The process for preparing a case for trial, we go through what's called a discovery process first. And so we turn over all of the witnesses that we are aware of and all of the evidence that we are aware of to the defense attorneys.
As we were gearing up for trial, I became part of the case in terms of looking at the footprints, looking at the digital forensics, as well as the DNA evidence. We basically utilize our expert witnesses to translate this to a jury to understand what it all means. We have to explain everything from beginning to end, how DNA works, how things are analyzed, how things are collected, how they're preserved. Because it was such a violent and bloody scene, that worked in our favor forensically speaking, because we were able to utilize that in making our case. Most people understand the cell phone evidence because most everyone has a device, but when it came to DNA and even some of the footwear and how it's collected, that was something we had to take time with. I would say the part of the trial that stood out to me the most was the medical examiner testimony. It was very powerful testimony. It was very detailed testimony as to these 37 stab wounds, all of which were defensive wounds. The depth, the gait of these wounds, the location of these wounds. It was powerful, it was lengthy testimony, and it stood out to me the most. All of the blood that was examined for DNA indicated that it belonged to Kayla. So what that shows us in a struggle is that someone had the upper hand in this fight. Ms. Thompson went there for a fight, she did engage in that fight, and she ultimately prevailed in that fight. The defendant stated that she never dragged the body, and we had very distinct drag marks to where there was no other explanation. We also noticed the circular pattern within that center kitchen island, which was indicative of someone trying to clean up.
The defense's opening statement focused on self-defense. It focused on the defendant being pregnant at the time. They focused a lot about the defendant and Terry's relationship, that they had a rocky relationship, and they painted a picture that the defendant did not travel here to commit a murder, that she traveled here for work, and that while she was here, she was going to just talk to Kayla about the fact that she is now pregnant and she wants Kayla to stop communicating with Terry so that her and Terry could go on and finally start a family. It was important to me to convey to the jury from the beginning that this isn't forensically a case that you're going to hear is self-defense. I highlighted her injuries, and I highlighted the premeditation of how Sakina Thompson did not live here, that she got on a flight, that she landed, booked an Uber to take that flight, checked into a hotel. That hotel was not far from where Kayla lived, that she didn't even stay one night in the hotel before then taking a rideshare service to Kayla's apartment complex. I highlighted how they were going to see surveillance footage of Sakina Thompson wandering around the apartment complex until Kayla got home. And this was over 2 hours that she stayed there until Kayla got home. One of the biggest highlights was that she got on the flight the day after and went back to New York. And one of my themes was that she basically went back to live a normal life. It was her hope that she was not going to get discovered. And she's not from here. Not many people in Kayla's circle knew about her, knew about Terry. She did almost get away with murder.
Anytime a family lose a loved one in such a horrific way like Kayla did, it's hard to attend every day in court because you're hearing the details, the gruesome details. Some of the details you probably didn't want to know. The fact that they showed up every day is dedication, and it shows that she was loved. Kayla was absolutely loved, and she was respected. So it shows a lot that they showed up every day for Kayla. When the family was able to give their impact statements, Kayla's brother and Kayla's mother, they were emotional. They were very heartfelt. They both said they had longer things they wanted to say, but because the court said keep it nice, that they weren't going to say them. But they all said that she took a light. She took a light out of this world, and she was just trying to live her life like any young 20-something-year-old girl. She just wanted to have fun. She was getting to travel. All that was taken away.
If I had to pick a witness that pulls it all together, it would be Janisa Tate, because Janisa Tate is the person who is able to authenticate the text messages. She's the reason why we have the messages. When the investigation started, she went through her phone. She did her best to find any screenshot that Kayla had ever sent her relating to Sakina Thompson sending her messages. Janisa was the one that is able to explain the history of this whole dynamic between the defendant and Kayla.
In this particular case, there was testimony from a juvenile witness who identified the defendant. She came into contact with the defendant at the apartment complex when the defendant had removed her mask. When the defendant removed her mask, she did a photographic lineup to identify the defendant. And in making the identification, she noticed the pair of shoes that the suspect was wearing. That became instrumental in our case because these shoes were a type of Prada shoe that was more of a platform, and it was very unique.
It does not take the jury long to return with a verdict.
The defendant was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole on December 1st, 2025.
When she was taken into custody, she was pregnant at the time. She was approximately 11 weeks pregnant when she committed the homicide. Unfortunately for her, she did have the child while she was still in custody here in Broward County. She's been sentenced to life. She's not only affected her life, now she's affected someone else's.
Sakina Thompson is now carrying out a full life sentence and missing her child's upbringing, all because of jealousy driving her to a callous act.
You should never let emotions get the best of you. You should never travel all this distance and commit this kind of heinous crime just because you're jealous of somebody. Kayla did everything in her power to ignore the defendant in this case. There was nothing she could have done from a safety aspect. If you commit a crime, there are still things that are going to allow you to get caught. And even if you think you do a good job cleaning up, there's still the chance that you get caught.
Any case that's driven by jealousy is a constant reminder to yourself that you can't let jealousy or rage take over your life. Don't let the rage, don't let the jealousy, don't let the obsession get to you, because you will lose.
I would like people to remember that Kayla was a woman that was loved by her friends, loved by her family. But most importantly, she lived a 23-year-old's life, and she was happy. She was living her life, and she was trying to live conflict-free. And so all Kayla wanted to do was avoid conflict of any kind. And when the conflict came in the form of Sakina Thompson into her life, Kayla did everything that you're supposed to do to avoid that conflict. She blocked her on social media. She blocked her on WhatsApp. Kayla never engaged with Sakina Thompson. Sakina Thompson showing up at her apartment complex, Kayla was completely blindsided, but she had done everything that she was supposed to do to try to avoid something like this happening.
Really puts life into perspective. You realize you have this young woman just trying to live her life, and over a mistake of talking to the wrong guy. I'd like to think most of us have been in that situation. We've all met somebody, talked to somebody, we thought they were somebody else, or they led us down the wrong path, and you lose your life over that. It will never make sense to me how someone could be capable of that. But as far as remembering Kayla, I like the image that I have of her, where she's just this beautiful young girl trying to live her life. And her mom really put that in perspective for me. She really helped me understand her, know about her, and I needed that for the drive to stick on this case. You need that. You need to know who you're fighting for. And I think that's important. I just like to think hopefully she's somewhere still living, being who she was.
Sakina might have taken Kayla's life, but she'll never take her legacy, her light, everything that she gave back to the community, her friends, and her family. She will never silence that. And that will live forever. It's become even more apparent since this even happened, because now everybody knows Kayla's name.
Pensacola, Florida. In the early hours of May 24th, 2022, gunshots ring out in a busy gym.
After the shooting, we received multiple calls from people that were in the gym at the time.
When you get a shots fired call, there's going to be a large police presence. They get to the scene and they make entrance into the gym, and that's when they find a body.
48-year-old Carla Williams, a popular high school teacher and former Pensacola State College basketball player, has been shot multiple times at close range.
My mom called me and she said, "Did you have Miss Carla Williams as your teacher? She's the person who was killed at the gym this morning."
Pensacola police learned that Carla Williams had a restraining order in place against an ex-boyfriend who has been stalking her. The man quickly becomes their person of interest.
If a person's persistent, the restraining order is not really worth the paper it's written on.
In cases of domestic violence, it only ever escalates. It never de-escalates. Unless you completely upset your life, pick up, move, change locations, change your routine, people that know you are going to know where to find you.
This is the story of an inspirational and beloved teacher, respected by all those around her, whose life was cut short by a jealous, green-eyed killer.
I don't know that she really conceived that somebody who loves you can kill you.
It was just like in most domestic violence situations, if I can't have you, no one will. And that's exactly what played out.
Pensacola, in Escambia County, Florida, is famous for its warm climate and picturesque coastline.
Pensacola is on the panhandle of Florida. It's got beautiful white beaches. It's where many people come to retire. It's also a military town. We have a very large Navy base in Pensacola.
That draws a lot of people in. They end up coming here early in their careers, and they love it so much that then when they retire 20, 30 years later, they come back.
Really, half of the town is really a beachside town. The beaches are the biggest draw for tourists, and then a lot of the interesting restaurants that we have.
Living in Pensacola is 48-year-old Carla Williams, a former Pensacola State College basketball star and highly respected maths teacher.
We had both worked at what was the collegiate high. Anybody who was age 16 or older could go there, and it was an accelerated program, and get their high school diploma.
I went to Pensacola Junior College, and she was my math teacher. She was just an amazing teacher and cared about her students.
In the early hours of May 24th, 2022, Carla drives to Pensacola Fitness Gym on 9th Avenue. But as Carla enters the building, she is unaware that a man who has been stalking her is sitting in a nearby rental car.
Even if it is 4 o'clock in the morning, it was early. That's her routine. He would know where to find her.
You don't just open the door, you have to use a key fob, and they're issued to you when you become a member to open the door.
We had the key fob entry where he'd swiped in at 4:20.
He walks over and pretends to hang his keys up like he's going to work out, like he has always done in the past. Then he immediately walks over and confronts Carla, who's over in the corner of the gym.
He just makes a beeline for her. He was walking with such purpose, just the way that he was coming towards her, that it would be natural for her to want to move away from him. And you see her look up and start to move away. She starts to back away into the back corner and then come across the gym, and he just tracks her all the way across.
He tries to talk to her, and you can see she's clearly trying to avoid him. She walks away from him, and then he approaches her again at another workstation where she was about to lift weights.
She probably felt it wasn't going to be good, that it was going to be, if not an act of violence, it was going to be a scene.
He pulls a firearm out of his waistband and begins shooting her multiple times.
He hit her multiple times right in the face, and she just went down. After that, he continued to shoot her while she was on the ground.
Other gym members working out nearby are terrified witnesses to the sudden gunshots.
There were a few people inside the gym. Obviously, they were not in the same section of the gym that she was in. They were sort of on the far side away from her. They moved in the opposite direction and start to run away.
She's clearly on the ground, unresponsive. He goes to leave, and then he stops, and he turns around, he goes back, and he had one bullet left in the gun, and while she's laying on the ground, he points it at her head and pulls the trigger. And then he runs out the door. That's what's clearly observed on the surveillance camera inside the gym.
At 4:25 a.m., law enforcement gets a call that there were shots fired at the gym, and so they respond to the scene.
Patrol officers from Pensacola Police Department arrive at the gym, and they discover Carla's body, surrounded by spent shell casings.
There was no suspect there when law enforcement had got there and found the body. The responding deputies start taping off the area and make sure they can preserve as much of the crime scene as possible. The investigators for the department get called because they're the ones that are going to take the next steps for the investigation.
I was woken up by my sergeant calling to tell me that I needed to come work a homicide. When I get to the crime scene, I go and I meet with the staff, and we collected the surveillance video, we collected the printout of the key fob entries. We collected the 16 9mm casings that were located around Carla's body.
They start trying to find any witnesses they can. There were a couple other gym members that were there working out, and there was a manager on scene because the gym was open, and so the investigators start talking to them, and they managed to give a description of the suspect.
That morning, I actually passed the gym, and I had seen all the police there. I had heard a bunch of sirens and everything like that, and then as the news started to break, it was like, it's a female victim. Seems to have been an isolated event.
After identifying the victim as Carla Williams, detectives begin their investigation by looking into her background.
She was a private person. She didn't share a whole lot with a lot of people, but Carla was always there. She wasn't, the center of attention, but she wasn't a wallflower either. And so anything that was going on, Carla would assist. Carla would help.
In the school system, she very much wanted everybody to succeed, and she wanted to help people get there. She was just always available. It was like she could get the quiet kids to talk. She could get the lonely kids to open up. She was just always there.
Investigators soon learned that Carla had recently been in an abusive relationship with a violent and controlling boyfriend.
We spoke to everyone that was in the gym at the time. There was an absolute consensus that it was Keenan Farrow. They knew him very well.
They had known each other for about 3 or 4 years and were in a relationship just before the shooting took place.
Carla really liked to go to the gym. She worked out. He had met her there, and he, kept asking her out, She kept saying no, turning him down. He finally wore her down, and she agreed to go out with him. And then the relationship progressed, and he realized he had probably the best thing that he would ever have in his life.
Carla and Keenan had a standard workout time at 4 in the morning, almost every day. It was never a matter of who done it. It was trying to figure out where he was and why he did it. That was challenge number one.
With witnesses having identified the shooter as Keenan Farrow, detectives are now under pressure to find the killer, who is on the loose. Florida, May 2022. Police have launched a murder investigation following the deadly shooting of 48-year-old teacher Carla Williams during her early morning workout at the Pensacola Fitness Gym. Witnesses at the scene have identified Carla's jealous ex-boyfriend, 39-year-old Keenan Nicholas Farrow, as the killer. Investigators need to locate Farrow and take him into custody.
After he left the gym, he went back to his mother's house. He wrote his mother a letter explaining to her that he did this because of the disrespect she showed him and the family. He left her a bunch of money. He left his wallet sitting there with his ID and all his credit cards, and he fled. We spoke to his mother, we spoke to his sister, and we spoke to his employer. They described him as a good-looking man that was a hard worker that had issues with girlfriends. Every one of them, same exact scenario.
Farrow's controlling behavior towards Carla had not gone unnoticed by those closest to her.
When I first met him, he was very charming, trying to make sure you liked him and so forth, and this was early. But as time went on, he was very jealous of Carla and my friendship. He was jealous of Carla with anything, like I said, with work, with school, with her church, even with her going to work out, although they met at the gym.
I specifically remember going over to her house, and she was like, oh, well, I met somebody. And I was like, okay. And she was like, but he has a background, but second chances mean everything to me. And I'm like, yeah, like you're the person of second chances. I was dropping one of my kids off, and she was on the phone with him. She was like, okay, well, Candace is here dropping off the kids. Let me let you go. And he would not let her get off the phone. And I could see it in her face where she was becoming distressed. And eventually she hung up, and then her phone rang and rang and rang, and it just never stopped.
He would pester and pester and pester for her to forgive him. Give me another chance, give me another chance. And then his mother, of course, would call Carla. And oh, he doesn't mean it. He's so sorry. He just loses control. He's had a bad life. He's lost his dad. His emotions are out of whack. Please, Carla, you know, he loves you. He loves you.
He did have a violent past. All of his violent tendencies tend to have something to do with a female that he was dating. He would get very attached to the female, and then when it seemed like they were about to break up, Keenan was unable to separate from that, and he just wouldn't allow them to go on about their life. He wanted to still be in it.
His mother helped to excuse it all away because these women were terrible, these women were using him, these women did that to him, these women lied, it was never like that. And so Carla was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt until she started to see evidence of the same behaviors. And then things kept progressing to where when he would get angry, he would break things, knock vases off, things in her house.
There's no crystal ball to let you look ahead and see this is what's going to happen if I don't do X, Y, or Z. So the best precaution is to stop it before it gets too bad. But that's really hard when people love each other or they think they love each other and, you know, their lives are all intertwined. The only thing that is for certain is that it only ever escalates. It never goes backwards. It never de-escalates.
Carla wasn't experienced in what somebody can do that has these tendencies. She'd had other relationships, but she had not been in a relationship with somebody that didn't understand, that didn't have respect.
Worried Farrow will flee the city, investigators begin tracking him with the assistance of Escambia County Sheriff's Office and Florida Highway Patrol.
Tracking his phone, we were able to locate it. He had thrown it out the window on the interstate. That made it a little more difficult to find him. We weren't able to see that Keenan had driven his car anywhere past our normal points where you have tolls and stuff and you would get a tag reader to tell you that they had passed through.
It's at this point that detectives get an unexpected break in the case that could lead them to Farrow.
When we did a search warrant on the house, we spoke to neighbors, and they told us that they saw a different vehicle in the driveway that morning, a car that they didn't know. So we thought maybe it was possible that he had obtained another car somehow. And we checked with our normal rental car places, and sure enough, he had rented a car the night before. We worked with the rental car agency, and they were able to locate the vehicle with I think it was OnStar, and that's how we knew that he was in Alabama.
With Farrow now across the state line in Alabama, investigators call in the assistance of federal law enforcement agencies.
I enlisted the assistance with the marshals. The marshals were able to track the vehicle. We clearly could tell by the path of the vehicle he was on his way back to Pensacola, and due to jurisdictional reason, we waited for him to get back in Florida so that we could bring him back to this department to interview him. When he crossed the Florida state line, he pulled into a convenience store, and that's where the team took him down and took him into custody.
I was relieved that he was off the street because I was afraid that once he realized what he had done, that he might continue to hurt other people because he was angry. And so what did he have to lose? Look what he had already done. So what would it hurt to continue to hurt others?
Police make a crucial discovery in Farrow's car following his arrest.
In the rental car was the firearm that he committed the homicide with. It still had the same magazine in it with no ammo. And so we brought him back here to interview him. He was just very nonchalant, almost as if he expected to get caught, but didn't care that he was getting caught. He didn't seem nervous, didn't seem scared. It just seemed like he had come to realize that this was his life. He knew he was going to prison, and so talking to me was better than going straight to jail. So he decided to talk to me. We sat down with Keenan and read him his Miranda warning rights. He agreed to speak with us, and at that time we informed him that we knew that he was the shooter. We seemed open to telling his story. He described it as a 3-year relationship. He claimed that they had lived together for a short while before they broke up. He claimed that they were wanting to have children together. They went to a fertility clinic and looked at their options. He didn't mention anything about marriage, but he definitely said they were wanting to have a child together.
Toward the beginning, I don't think any other reports suggest that there was anything bad about the relationship, but as the relationship went on, the relationship started to become strained for one reason or another. There were frequent arguments.
We just constantly kept getting him back on path because he would break away and start talking about things that were irrelevant until he confessed to shooting her. He didn't realize that he had shot her as many times as he did. He told us that his intent was not to kill Carla. He said that he didn't realize he was going to do it until he got there. And we questioned that. Why would you get a rental car? Why would you bring the gun into the gym? Why would you pretend to hang your keys if your intent wasn't to walk into that gym, shoot her, and run out? And he never offered an explanation of that. He just kept saying that his intent wasn't to go in there and kill her. And I asked him how many times he thought he shot, and he said 3 or 4 maybe. When I told him it was 16 shots, he didn't believe that. He asked to watch the video, and we told him we weren't going to let him watch it. But definitely in the video it's clear that he shoots her 15 times, walks off, and then comes back and puts one more round in her, and then runs out the door.
Investigators are working to determine what led Farrow to kill Carla Williams, focusing on uncovering the motive behind the violent and sustained attack.
We were trying to learn why he did it, more so that we could learn from it and figure out ways to prevent other people from having breakdowns and doing things like this. It took a while to get him to tell us why he did it, but he eventually began telling us that it was because he felt that she disrespected him and his family.
Police learned that Farrow had been stalking Carla in the weeks leading up to the fatal shooting at the gym.
There's research that's been done that shows the most dangerous time in any relationship that could lead to domestic violence would be right after leaving the relationship, within a year to a year and a half. And we certainly had that in the case with Ken Farrow and Carla Williams.
I was very concerned about her, so I had given her the code to my garage and said, anytime you need to get away, you have a safe place, a safe house. Carla never would have come because she wouldn't have put anyone else in danger.
She took precautions to protect herself, but he was that very, very tiny, tiny percentile that will not be stopped.
My angle was I wanted to absolutely prosecute this guy for premeditated homicide, so I had to play the part that I thought he was a very good guy. Told him that everyone we spoke to said he was a great guy. You lost it over this girl, and you went further than you should have gone. And so by making him believe that he was a really good guy and that he just made a mistake, he would continue to tell me the things I needed to learn about the homicide.
By gaining the trust of their prime suspect, detectives are working the evidence in the case to prove that this was not just a case of manslaughter, but one of premeditated and cold-blooded killing. A life sentence in prison is on the line. Pensacola, Florida. Police have arrested 39-year-old Keenan Farrow and charged him with the first-degree murder of his ex-partner, 48-year-old Carla Williams.
Carla Williams was not just any person to the Pensacola community. She was a very popular teacher at Pensacola State College. She was an assistant basketball coach, and she was a star athlete herself. When she attended Pensacola State College, she made multiple all-star teams, and so from early on in her young adult life, she was very good at what she did.
She was one of those teachers that you would have never known if she ever had a bad day. It was something that she never carried to the classroom. She very much stood at her door, welcomed you in, whether it was a hug, a high five, a smile, how are you doing? You didn't even have to be her student to know who she was. You just knew that if you needed something, that's the place to go. If you needed somebody to talk to, she was the person.
The student took her one time, they would want to sign up for her other classes. So if you had her once, you wanted her again and again and again. And she was there for them outside of class too, and not just for math, but they could share with her other things that were going on in their life, and she would be there. She was a good listening ear. She believed everyone could succeed, and she never gave up on any of her students.
Investigators look closely at the relationship history between Carla Williams and Kenan Farrow.
Started out gradually because Kenan was very charming and very sweet and wonderful at the beginning of the relationship, but as the relationship progressed, he was very demanding, very selfish. He would expect her to sit on the couch with his head in her lap. He didn't even want her to get up to go into the kitchen, to go do anything. They could only watch what he wanted to watch on TV. These were things that I saw as warning signs.
Friends and family had said they had broken off the relationship, and then a short time later they had gotten back together. By the time you get to December of 2021, Carla Williams alleged that Kenan Farrow was being verbally abusive and things of that nature, and so she broke it off for a second time.
The incident that really made her say enough is enough was they were on their way to Atlanta.
He claims that someone had told him that they saw Carla with another man when he confronted her on the trip, and it got physical in the car.
Kenan didn't like it, so he grabbed the steering wheel and started swerving the car back and forth. Carla was very scared. She got control of the vehicle, and that really made her realize this was not a healthy relationship. Things were not going the way she needed them to go.
That's when the end of the relationship pretty much started, right before Christmas on that trip to Atlanta.
After Carla Williams breaks off the relationship, Kenan Farrow had been incessantly texting her, trying to call her, trying to show up at her home.
He thought that if he did one thing, said I'm sorry, showed up with flowers, that made everything okay. She said no. He could not accept that she said no.
Seemed to be his MO with the other girls that he had dated. When they broke up with him, he would keep coming back, wanting to talk to them, wanting them to get back together.
That eventually led to Carla Williams trying to get a restraining order against Kenan Farrow.
Carla's family, they were not a fan of Kenan. They really worked hard for her to separate herself from him, to move on from the relationship, seek law enforcement assistance with the restraining order.
But Carla's request for a restraining order against Farrow is refused by the judge in Escambia County Court.
That first injunction Carla Williams files to get a restraining order, the judge denied it, citing that it didn't meet the legal criteria for a restraining order. Part of the criteria for a restraining order would need to be evidence of abuse or the victim believing that they are in imminent danger of domestic violence. And based on what was written in the court file that Carla Williams had informed the court of, the judge seemed to not believe that her explanation seemed to rise to the level of meeting that legal criteria.
Following a family bereavement in December 2021, Carla and Kenan Farrow reconnect.
Kenan Farrow's father had just recently passed away, and so Carla Williams, having been in a relationship with Kenan Farrow, wanted to be kind of that support system for him, to make sure he had someone to talk to, because losing a parent is very traumatic.
She was still, obviously so kind. She would sacrifice herself, her time, whatever, to help other people.
Carla had agreed to see him kind of on a weekly basis. Kenan Farrow would come over and Carla Williams would cut his hair. They would watch movies, talk about the recent death of Kenan Farrow's father. But while Carla Williams had made it explicit that she wasn't wanting to get in a relationship with him, it appeared Kenan Farrow was attempting to get Carla Williams to restart their relationship.
Farrow is convinced he can win back Carla and persuades her to let him come to her home.
Even after the relationship between the two had broken off, Carla Williams was still there, in a sense, for Kenan Farrow after his father died, and it's quite possible he mistook Carla Williams' kindness as trying to lead back into a relationship.
He wanted to come over just to talk to her and to watch a movie, have dinner, and then whenever he said about them getting back together and was trying to be more than friends with her, she said no, and she said, you need to leave.
During that encounter, Kenan Farrow, he even wanted a list from Carla Williams of things he could change and that he would do them if it meant they could get back together. Carla Williams did not want to get back in a relationship. She even told him that you can't force someone to be in a relationship with you. It has to be mutual. But Kenan Farrow did not leave, and then things escalated fairly quickly after that.
And then he became physical with her, and he put her down on the floor, and he locked his fingers and was strangling her. And she was asking him to stop, that he was hurting her, and he said he didn't care that he was hurting her. And she finally got away from him, and she ran out. Then he was chasing her, and she was able to get back in the house and lock the house and secure it.
He was eventually arrested on domestic violence battery for strangling Carla Williams.
Following the arrest, Carla applies for a second restraining order against Kenan Farrow.
In that restraining order, the first half is pretty similar to what was in the previous restraining order that was denied, talking about kind of the harassing behavior. But then now she talks about the domestic violence arrest, that Kenan Farrow strangled her, she was in fear of her life. Once those details were added to the restraining order, the judge did end up granting the restraining order against Kenan Farrow.
The protective order is not a bulletproof vest. It's a deterrent, and for people that are afraid of getting in trouble or don't want the extra hassle of being in more trouble than they're already in because they've got a protective order, it can be effective. But there is a small percentage of cases where they are not deterred by it. They are not afraid of the consequences of it.
You could see why it would make Kenan Farrow start to feel angry. At least if he didn't have a relationship with Carla Williams, she was at least allowing him to be in her home, talk, and things like that, but now all of that's been taken away by the restraining order.
Kenan was very aware of how restraining orders worked. He knew that he wasn't allowed to be near or around her, couldn't communicate with her, but as his previous restraining order and issues with his previous girlfriends, he didn't seem to care. His major goal was to get the girl back, and so he was going to continue to try to communicate with her, talk to her.
Kenan Farrow had traveled to her parents' home and was harassing them. The local police department where her parents lived even had to contact Kenan Farrow and say you need to stop contacting them.
She was very concerned because she thought that Kenan had tried to get in her house. So I had gone over and we looked at it to see and make sure it was still secure.
She had done everything that she could do. She made the reports to the police. She had a strong and supportive family. She was a strong and intelligent person.
Police discover that the state parole board had issued parole violation paperwork to Farrow shortly before his confrontation with Carla at the gym.
Kenan was served with paperwork that he was going to go back to jail for violation of a restraining order that Carla had placed on him after this last incident, so he was arrested again. And it was until he went to his first appearance for it, where his attorney informed him that he wasn't going to be able to buy his way out of this one, that he was going to have to go to jail because he had too many points based on his previous issues with females. So he was looking at going to jail for a few years. And if he was going to prison, then she wasn't going to enjoy her life.
The key question for investigators is whether the evidence is sufficient to bring a first-degree murder charge against Kenan Farrow, with critical details still missing about the days before the attack. Pensacola, Florida. 39-year-old Kenan Farrow has been arrested for the murder of 48-year-old Carla Williams at Pensacola Fitness Gym in the early hours of May the 24th, 2022. Investigators need to build their case against Kenan Farrow by tracing his movements in the days leading up to Carla's murder.
We could pretty much piece it out exactly where he'd been, where he was going. We even were able to track how he got the firearm.
He couldn't own a gun because he had a restraining order and he had a previous felony conviction. So he had to have someone buy him a gun so that he could commit this crime. But his friends also knew that he couldn't have a firearm, couldn't possess one, and yet they still assisted him with obtaining one.
If you think by telling an abuser or a felon that they're not allowed to have a gun and they're just going to willy-nilly hand their guns over, you've mistaked the system. And these abusers know that.
He was a felon. He could not get the weapon himself. He had someone else do it and lied to that young man and said that he needed it to protect his mother, and the young guy fell for the lies. This guy's worried about his mom. I've got to help him out. I'll get him a gun.
He was adamant that his friends did not know that his intent for the firearm was to kill someone, but they gave him the tool that he needed to follow through with the act. That was the biggest key to the case that it could have stopped. It was if the friends had not purchased him a firearm.
As a convicted felon in the state of Florida, you're not allowed to possess a firearm or firearm ammunition. Since he shot Carla Williams, he was possessing a firearm, and so one of the charges that was added to Kenan Farrow's murder charge was possession of a firearm by a convicted felon.
In other counties, the moment somebody is given a restraining order, the sheriff's office go and make sure that there's no weapons in their homes. They take those extra precautions. Escambia County does not do that.
Detectives also examine Farrow's movements following the shooting at Pensacola Fitness Gym.
After we finished the search warrant, we learned that Kenan did come back to the house, and he climbed through the window because it was boarded up now from us tearing the door down. He used every bullet he had and he shot Carla. We thought really that was his intent, was to go back and shoot himself. But we took all the bullets, we took all his money, and we took another firearm that we located in the house. He couldn't do it.
Police also develop a theory about why Farrow hired a rental car instead of using his own vehicle.
He did have a fairly nice car that I guess he thought he would leave to his mom, and that he wanted to separate his vehicle from it to keep it away from being seized, or his mother happened to deal with sitting in a car that her son had committed suicide in, so I thought that was the reason for getting a rental car.
Farrow is charged with first-degree murder on May 26, 2022.
Defendants are arrested, charged with the crime. They go to arraignment, they're told what they're charged with, and then the case enters the discovery process. And about every 12 weeks, there's a docket day. In the meantime, the parties engage in discovery. I have to turn over everything that I have, copies of all my reports, copies of photographs, and they have the opportunity to depose all of my witnesses. I have to give them the witness list, and so they will set depositions and take testimony from everyone that is expected to testify in the state's case.
Farrow's legal team carefully examine the options available to their client.
I think that perhaps the defense team had explored their options, and there is so much overwhelming evidence in this case, it wasn't a question of whether or not the defendant did it. The deal was plea straight up to the court, first-degree premeditated murder, and the sentence is going to be life in state prison because it's mandatory under the law.
In the state of Florida, first-degree premeditated murder has a mandatory minimum sentence of life in prison, and the only other sentence that's possible is the death penalty.
Kenan was informed that if he were to accept the plea deal, accept that he committed the homicide, that they would take the death penalty off the table and skip the trial.
There was no reason for me to negotiate the case to any lesser charge or any predetermined prison sentence. The family wanted life, the state wanted life, and that was the appropriate sentence for this case.
And so after speaking with his attorney, they accepted the plea deal in hopes that later down the road he could appeal something, a hole in the case to that effect, and maybe he could get out of prison.
It's really not a deal. He just ended up pleading to first-degree premeditated murder.
Later, he tried to withdraw it. The court wouldn't let him withdraw it. But ultimately, he did enter the plea, and we didn't have to put her family or his family through that.
I was angry whenever he was trying to claim that he had psychological issues and so he needed an insanity plea, and he wouldn't man up to what he had done. He was still looking for an excuse. That made me angry, but I was thankful that he went ahead and decided to plead guilty because I didn't want to see her family go through the trial. They didn't need that. It was already devastating enough for them.
I think the sentence should have came way sooner than what it did. Do I think he drug it out so long to continuously hurt us more and more? Yeah, absolutely.
With Farrow now serving a life sentence, Carla's family and friends are left wondering if her murder could have been prevented.
The outpouring from the community was amazing, but I also feel like there was a lot of outrage because this should have never happened. There should have been so much more in place to protect her.
Looking back, you would say, why not approve the first restraining order that was denied? That's something that, particularly from the family aspect, it seems that maybe not enough was done. But at the time, you don't know what's going to happen, and so the judge kind of has to rely on the law and has to make a ruling that fits with the law in Florida.
But with restraining orders, there's always the continued risk for the victim. It is really just a court order. It's a piece of paper saying stay away from them. It gives them an opportunity to have them put in jail for a year or two, or in the previous case with Keenan, it was 4, or violating it, to give them a peace of mind that he knows he can't come near me.
I don't know that there would have been anything that she could have done absent, picking up, moving, changing her name, completely just disappearing. And maybe that would have just prompted him to hunt her more. I don't know. But I don't think that there's anything that she could have done. I think that he was determined. If he couldn't have her, no one would.
Following her death, Carla Williams' colleagues and friends come together to remember her legacy and raise awareness of the hidden dangers of domestic violence.
Don't ignore the early warning signs. Don't wait till it gets to the level that they are breaking things, that you are frightened, that they carry an argument beyond the normal limits. Don't care how much they say they love you. That is not the kind of love that anyone should ever have to endure.
I think a lot of times people think, oh, well, this will never happen to me. The only way to protect yourself is to separate from that situation, is to get out completely. And that's very difficult for people to do. A lot of times they're financially involved, there's children involved, there's pets involved, there's property involved, and it requires upsetting your entire life.
This is reality. This can happen to people that you also know and care about. I have a 26-year-old daughter that started her life on her own, and when you see it as a police officer, you can't help to worry and think about it when you're thinking of your family. It does take a toll on you.
Pensacola State College honor Carla's work and dedication to students at the school.
Her being the star athlete she was when she went to Pensacola State College and then later coaching the team, the school decided to retire her jersey number, which was number 22. In sports, having your number retired means no one else will be associated with your number in that sport. So no one else on the Pensacola State College basketball team will ever wear number 22, and Carla Williams will forever be associated with number 22 when it comes to women's basketball at Pensacola State College.
They hung it up in the Hall of Fame in the school. For a handful of the games that happened after that, they always did something on her behalf.
A poor decision impacts more than just the two people involved. There's people that maybe only have heard of Carla Williams' name, and it's now impacted them that she was killed. Really knowing how you deal with emotions can be the difference between fixing a problem or causing a much larger one.
I am so thankful she does not have to live like that anymore. Would I much rather her be here and be alive and be available like she was before, yes, absolutely. But I would never wish anybody to live in fear. And that has truly been what has allowed me to heal some and to find peace in a very unpeaceful situation.
If you met Carla and her big smile, she was one of the most beautiful people you would ever meet, inside and out. She was there for everyone. Somebody who gave so much to so many students that now have diplomas, that now have careers, that have gone on in life because of her.
Athol, Idaho. Close to midnight on the 2nd of February 2021, emergency responders receive a bone-chilling call. A frantic plea for help from a heartbroken husband, reporting the unthinkable.
They aired a suicide call up in Athol off Wheat Ridge.
Bath was full. The water was slightly red. There was a gun in the bathtub and a casing.
There was a packed duffel bag at the bottom of the stairs.
It looked like it had just been set there, whether somebody returning or getting ready to leave.
The washer and dryer were running. The normal people of the world don't normally do laundry in the middle of the night.
Investigators must navigate a web of conflicting stories to find the truth.
The medical examiner determined that the cause of death was gunshot wound, and almost immediately we knew that that contradicted some of the evidence we were seeing.
She would never, ever shoot herself. Never kill herself. She loved family too much.
It came down to she had to be dead before she was shot, or else the crime scene would have been a lot bloodier.
Is this a woman pushed to the edge, or is there more to this case than meets the eye?
Athol is a very small town, just a couple hundred people live there. Basically an intersection and just a couple neighborhoods, a couple stores and a gas station or two. A lot of people can live in the county but live about 30-40 minutes away and kind of escape the big town feel.
Athol is very generally a friendly community, normal North Idaho people. We have a bunch of people that have retired to Athol from all over the country. There's a lot of properties out there that are 5+ acres, so you have a lot of people taking care of their own land or just trying to homestead around here.
Living in Athol is 48-year-old Kendy Howard and her husband Daniel.
Kendy was just absolutely fun-loving, absolutely loved life, was a really genuine, good person.
She was naturally a happy person. She was an outgoing person. She liked to do things. She loved her kids. Co-workers that worked with her liked her. She was a happy person.
Daniel Howard, we all know that he's retired ISP and that he was former military.
Down in Kamei, he was a state trooper, and he used to come in to the restaurant that she was at, and that's how they met.
At 10:43 p.m. on the 2nd of February 2021, Kootenai County Sheriff's Office receive a distressing call from the Howard residence.
911, what's the address? What's the matter? Tell me where you're at.
She shot herself. My wife.
Okay, take a deep breath, honey. Take a deep breath.
I was patrolling inside the city of Hayden. I actually do remember I was at Government in Lancaster when the call came out. It was a normal night. It was very late at night. I want to say it was probably around midnight, maybe a little later. When we have a call where someone's actually either in danger or injured, we call it a tone. So a loud beep goes across our radio systems for all of us to pay extra attention to what's happening. And they aired a suicide call up in Athol off Wheat Ridge, which is up off of Highway 54. When we first showed up, he was screaming, crying, hurling himself over, bending over, gasping for air, just hysterical. Sir, where is she?
They're upstairs in the bathroom.
Upstairs?
She's upstairs in the bathroom? Okay, upstairs in the bathroom. Oh my god.
Sir, what's your first name?
Dan.
Dan? Dan, can you have a seat for me?
Please, can I stay?
Yeah, you can sit if that's better for you. If that's better for you. I'm just trying to make you a little more comfortable, okay? Dan, my name's... Okay? Dan, what can I do to help you right now? Okay. I can see that knife, don't reach for it. Thank you, sir. First, it's very standard, what's going on, essentially, very broad. Why are we here? What do you need from us? This one obviously is a little different when someone calls in a suicide or a stabbing or a shooting. It's pretty obvious why we're there, but we still confirm, what does law enforcement need to do for you today and how can we help?
What's going on?
Sir, they have to do their job.
What is it?
They're gonna hold the scene in there. Medical's gonna go in there. They're gonna do their job.
Medical's gonna go in there and do their thing. This is their scene now.
We didn't get a lot of straight answers. It was more just utterances of she's gone or is she gone even or what's going on. We didn't get a lot of straightforward answers. It was more answering with questions as to what we were going to be doing. He did tell us that she was upstairs in the bathroom, but aside from that, I didn't get a lot of straight answers from him.
First thing, obviously, is to evaluate, large, medium, and small. Looking at the house, looking where it's situated, photographing, documenting, freezing a moment in time. And then once I understand kind of the general scene, where the vehicles are, where the house is, what the condition, the weather, are there any neighbors, is there any cameras nearby that may have caught anything? Then moving in closer to the inside of the house. What does the inside of the house look like generally? Is it messy? Does it look like there's a fight? Is there fresh damage? All of these things generally. And then as you get closer and closer into the more specifics of, okay, let's look at Kendy.
Kendy was in the bathtub. Bath was full. The water was slightly red. There was a gun in the bathtub and a casing.
I know the bathtub was at least partially full of water and that she was completely naked and that there were no clothes in the bathroom or in the immediate area. And the gunshot wound entrance was inside of her mouth and the exit was at the back of her head.
She had other injuries that were present in the bathtub. There were some on the bottom of her feet that looked like cuts. And then she had some tears and small wounds and some bruising on her arms and then on her hands.
The fact that her body was cut and bruised all over told us that there was quite likely an altercation before she died.
When I found the clothes in the washing machine that were dry and hadn't been started yet, and that the clothes in the dryer were still warm, it's like, why did he only put in 2 articles of clothing, his pants and a hooded sweatshirt, and transfer that stuff off? And that's when I started looking into how long had it been since that, and did the deputies capture that on their video cameras when they walked inside the house?
As I walk downstairs, you can see a laundry room that's right in front of the staircase, and the washer and dryer were running. One for time of day. I do understand there's shift work. Sometimes I do laundry at odd hours because I get home at odd hours. The normal people of the world don't normally do laundry in the middle of the night, and they don't normally run laundry while law enforcement is responding. My washer runs for about 45 minutes to an hour, and it was still going, and we had already been on scene for an extended period of time. So that was odd to me. When was the washer and dryer started? Why was it started?
I downloaded the manual, I confirmed the model number, just went through to get as specific as possible to know that that machine and operating in a normal condition would be under the parameters of the time and what selections were made on the board that you could see in the LED. And so taking all of those selections and then going from the manual and directly from the factory is what I did. That dryer was started within minutes of the 911 call. And is that consistent? Does that match up with his story? Does it not match up with his story? Is it odd? Why would he be so upset that he would go downstairs and do a load of laundry if his wife had just killed herself?
Dan didn't have any injuries, and he claimed to not have any injuries, so he didn't have any that we could see. Obviously, that doesn't mean that he didn't have any anywhere. There was none that we could see, and he claimed that he didn't have any, he didn't want any medical attention. He was dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, which again, it's the middle of the night, which I found a little odd. Something else I noticed was on his t-shirt, you could see some deodorant lines, which normally, if you put deodorant on in the beginning of the day, you might get some on your shirt, but it's usually gone by the end of the day, or at least faded. So that to me would tell that someone had either reapplied deodorant recently or they changed their shirt and got deodorant on a new shirt. There was a packed duffel bag at the bottom of the stairs.
It looked like it had just been set there, whether somebody returning or getting ready to leave.
The packed bag was a Victoria's Secret brand, which is normally a very feminine brand. Usually women would own that. And it was packed, which would suggest someone was going to leave the house. You don't normally pack an overnight bag unless you're expecting to leave, which I found that odd as well. When we respond to suicides, we look for things that either notes indicating that they're going to commit suicide, saying goodbye, or signs of preparing for a future. So preparing to leave, having appointments the next day, or a lunch plan the next day, stuff like that. Things that would show that they were planning to still be there.
On your right, if you go towards that game room, there was a bar there, and on that bar with the bar stools, there was the divorce paperwork laid out, as well as some other legal paperwork.
Wasn't necessarily surprising. A lot of people go through divorce around here, but it was just sitting out on the counter, so we looked at that.
After investigating the scene, police begin to question the story they've been told. The evidence is building, and there is one person who is slowly becoming a person of interest. February 2, 2021, Athol, Idaho. Kootenai County Sheriff's Office receive a call from a distressed Dan Howard reporting that his wife Kendy has committed suicide. Investigators reviewing immediate evidence at the scene quickly sense that something is off and turn to Kendy's autopsy for clues.
In the coroner's office, they have to decide legally how this person died. Was it a suicide? Was it a homicide? Was it an accident, natural causes, or unfounded? And so the coroner's office, they determine the manner of death. The medical examiner determines the cause of death. So the medical examiner determined that the cause of death was a gunshot wound, and almost immediately we knew that that contradicted some of the evidence we were seeing.
The nature of the gunshot wound also raises some questions.
People tend to have an upward angle because they want to make sure that their brain gets struck by a bullet and that their death is instantaneous. The trajectory of that and the placement of that were not consistent with what we would have normally expected with people trying to take their own life with a pistol.
She was shot in her tongue, and it went through her tongue and then into her neck. A tongue is something that bleeds very profusely, and had she been alive when she'd been shot, there would have been blood everywhere. And it came down to, she had to be dead before she was shot, or else the crime scene would have been a lot bloodier.
With the official autopsy raising even more questions around the death of Kendy Howard, detectives start to focus on her husband, Dan, a former state trooper.
Well, it's definitely a stumbling block. Now I have a medical professional telling you that she died, but could it be that Dan Howard placed that gun in her mouth and shot her and she died from it? And so then it's like, how do we look at this to determine, is this a potential murder where he forced the gun in her mouth and then either placed her in the bathtub or walked in and shot her there? And so trying to tease through that, and then the other detectives involved really take a step forward in trying to look at those things and working with the prosecutor's office to find some experts to see if that's a valid medical opinion or if it needs to be revisited.
Detectives start by turning to Dan Howard's former colleagues to understand his experience as a state trooper.
We started interviewing a lot of Dan's former colleagues at the state police, and we learned that not only was Dan trained in, but he helped to instruct some of the other troopers in what's commonly called a chokehold or the carotid restraint. A chokehold is cutting off air. It's going to be across the windpipe. The carotid restraint is going to go along both sides of the neck, and it doesn't cut off the air, it cuts off the blood supply. Essentially is used to help somebody pass out. Of course, if you apply that too long, it could have irreversible damage and even cause death. And so we learned that he was well trained in this, and he actually trained other troopers in applying this carotid restraint. That evidence matched some of the bruises and injuries we found on and in Kendy's body. We learned that Dan gifted Kendy a gun during one of the previous Christmas seasons. However, in speaking with family members, we learned that Kendy hated guns, that she never even shot this gun that Dan gave her.
I asked Kendy several times, I said, do you want to shoot? I got a bunch of different types of guns, let's go shoot and have fun on the weekend. You want nothing to do with it. To be honest with you, I know nothing about them. Don't care to know anything about them. Don't like them. It's just not my thing. But she told me that on a couple occasions when I tried to get her to go out and shoot with me. But it was well known with Kendy that she didn't like firearms. She really didn't know anything about them, even how to use them.
We learned through family that although Kendy was shot, they believed that it was very unlikely that she used her own gun.
Investigators next discover that Dan Howard had become involved in an incident that had ended his career as a state trooper 10 years ago.
10 years ago, this office prosecuted Dan, and that led to him not being employed by the state police anymore.
There was a pursuit that he was involved in. During this pursuit, he had chased a car. The car reversed and started going back down the road. It appears from the evidence, from the videos and stuff like that, head-on collision in which Mr. Howard exited his patrol car, and as the vehicle was driving away, he shot multiple rounds at the vehicle, striking the passenger. He ended up pleading guilty to multiple counts. He served some jail time, and then of course he voluntarily decertified himself as a police officer so he could no longer work as a police officer. But as part of the plea agreement, he was allowed to keep his gun rights.
Ever since that investigation, we knew that Dan was violent and he would take things to the extreme. Dan eventually began working in Alaska. He was a heavy equipment operator on the north slope of Alaska. He was basically gone working for 3 weeks at a time, and then he'd come home for 3 weeks at a time.
3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. That he knew when he left he had no control.
While Dan was away, Kendy got to experience a little bit of freedom.
Her favorite activity was antiquing. She absolutely loved to antique. She loved to go to breweries. She loved to do any new craft. Always had an idea to go do a wreath or make soap. She always wanted to be busy.
Dan was financially controlling, and so he's thousands of miles away, but his presence is still felt here in Idaho.
He would track everything she did, everything she spent on. So every time she ran that credit card, it'd go to the email that they had to share, and he could look. So a lot of times what she would do is go down to the Super One grocery store and buy visas at the grocery store, and it would say just Super One, so he thinks that she's buying groceries. But in reality, she was buying Visa cards so we could go and do stuff without him tracking her.
That allowed Kendy to kind of have some moments of peace. She could travel around a bit. She had a job. She went home a lot. She grew up a few hours south of here, so she'd see her parents frequently. That also allowed her to spend time with people that she grew up with. And she ended up coming in contact with a high school friend. They were able to kindle a relationship together, and so Kendy started having an extramarital affair.
She wanted to divorce Dan for a while, and so she was trying to set up her life because she knew it'd be difficult to separate from him because everything was his, nothing was hers. Even though she worked all those years at Kootenai, it still was all his. Everything was built upon him. And so she was trying to figure out how she could start a different life. She started going down to Cami probably the last year and really enjoying it and meeting some of her old friends. And so then that's when she found a house that she wanted, and so she put an offer on it. So I talked to her about it, and she was going to talk to Dan about it. And I had said, well, maybe you should wait and make sure people are there. And she picked him up from the airport, and I stopped by at a restaurant, and she laid everything out that she wanted a divorce, and she bought a house. And that's where the war really started, because now he knew that she was serious.
With the reality of the divorce sinking in, the tension reached a breaking point.
It was on January 29th. He came into a room dressed in dark clothing with dark gloves on, and she awoke to him being above her as she lay in bed, and she was convinced that he was going to kill her. She saw a magazine on the ground and then managed to get a call to her friend, who then called her parents, who called 911.
Central Dispatch, this is... Yes. I had a call from my daughter. She called in a panic, and I know her husband just got home from Alaska, and they're getting a divorce, and it didn't sound very good out there.
Okay, hold on just 1 second, okay?
Okay.
It looks very suspicious that he was approaching her in the middle of the night while she slept, obviously with a pistol and a pillow. The pillow probably to muffle the sound or to obscure the ballistic evidence.
One officer talked to Dan. The other officer went up and talked to Kendy. Kendy wouldn't reveal what she was feeling. She described what had happened, but didn't reveal what she thought he was going to do.
Everybody has their own individual differences, but I've seen numerous examples of somebody getting into a point in their domestic relation where they feel threatened at the moment and they leave, but then they find some sort of reconciliation or some level where they feel safe to come back, only for the cycle of violence to escalate again.
Detectives searched Kendy's phone for a digital trail that might reveal the reality of life behind closed doors.
Part of the evidence on her phone were selfies, and they showed bruising on her chest, bruising on her arm that he had done to her in July of 2020 on a camping trip.
She wanted to go on that camping trip so bad, and she didn't want to cancel it, that she covered it, and we went on that camping trip to Dorshack Reservoir and had a great time. But she would just take it, just absolutely take it, just because if it meant doing something with her family or fun, she just brushed it off. But it was her part of trying to leave.
My understanding of their relationship was that it was stormy, and that Dan did not like at all Kendy having an affair with this other man, that it made him exceptionally angry and potentially violent. She was looking at trying to leave him. She was wanting to divorce him. She was wanting to go back to her hometown, get away from him. She was kind of trying to set sights on improving her life, and looking back through previous investigations, you could totally see the potential for him to have a high likelihood of domestic violence.
Detectives are starting to build a case in the murder of Kendy Howard. Dan Howard has moved from person of interest to a prime suspect. Not only is there a history of domestic violence, but there is also the motive beginning to emerge of jealousy around a potential new life, a new relationship. However, until police can accrue enough evidence, no arrests can yet be made. February 2021, Athol, Idaho. Kootenai County Sheriff's Office continued to investigate the reported suicide of 48-year-old Kendy Howard. Despite her husband Daniel's history of domestic violence and many suspicious details from the crime scene, there isn't enough evidence yet to make any official accusation. Detectives continue to monitor Howard's behavior.
When her next birthday came along, Dan decided to hold a yard sale and sell all of Kendy's belongings. Kendy's daughter found out about this. She, of course, wanted some of her mother's belongings. Not only was Dan unwilling to give these belongings to the daughter, her daughter was going to have to buy these belongings from Dan.
He didn't let his daughter or anybody have anything of hers. It was very frustrating.
He sold her possessions. And he did sell as well all her glass chickens. She was very fond of glass antique chickens. And rather than give that to her granddaughter, he sold them.
And that was her one favorite thing to antique, was chickens.
And when her daughter showed up to the yard sale, there was an argument with her and her half-brother, and she was basically trespassed from her mom's property.
The yard sale is another clear sign to Kendy's daughter Brooke that something is amiss. But her suspicions were there from the very beginning.
When that phone conversation happened, and the sheriffs knew, I think they knew, from her response to him, it was, did you kill my mom? Did you harm my mom? I mean, I know Brooke knew it too.
What? What are you talking about? Oh, you gotta be kidding. Oh. No. I'm not saying you are.
Why does she think you killed her mom? And what in the world is she going to say to us? I mean, if there's something else going on, you need to talk to us now.
I don't know what else is going on. There's a lot I don't know what's going on.
Well, because they're close, so I'm guessing that Kendy probably shared a lot of stuff with her.
Okay.
So what is she going to say? Because I guarantee, as angry as she was, she's going to want to talk to us. She's going to be chasing us down.
Fine.
What the hell is she going to say?
Well, Brooke knew that he killed her mom, and I think it made him angry that he knew that she knew, and I think he did his best to punish her by not giving her any of her mother's things whatsoever, and by taking money that would rightfully belong to her, because besides jealousy, part of the motive here was money.
It's always about the money with Dan. Everything was about the money and dividing it up, and he didn't want to give anything away. And that's why I believe he killed her, without a doubt, because he's just greedy and selfish.
Paperwork we had found was them trying to divvy up belongings or divvy up money. I don't know if they had plans prior as to what exactly was going to be split, or if they were still deciding how the split was going to go.
He was very money driven, and that was going to be a huge piece, knowing that he was going to lose half of everything.
They had a lot of money in the bank. Together, if you put together all their assets, they had about $2 million, so he would have lost $1 million if she divorced him.
She just wanted enough money to buy the house, remodel it, and move on with her life. That's all she wanted. She wasn't depressed at all.
Reviewing footage from the night of the shooting, red flags become apparent.
He was not acting like you would anticipate a grieving husband to act. His emotions were extreme and almost put on or fake or over the top, like emphasized more than what would be natural or expected or normal. And so you got the impression that he was kind of almost putting on a show.
It was obvious that he was faking crying. He wasn't crying, there were no tears, but he was trying to be appropriate and wasn't succeeding very well.
Dan, I know this is hard, but when is the last time that you saw your wife alive? I know this is tough.
I don't know.
How long ago? Can you recall?
He was hyperventilating, but then would stop and be able to talk and then go right back to freaking out. H demeanor was just not that of what we would normally see on this kind of call.
I'll have a chat.
You asked me who I needed here.
Hold on.
Here's the deal. Okay. I'll tell you what the deal is, man. The deal is
then you're gonna gonna listen to what we say, alright? Right now, this is a crime scene. We don't want anybody that's not ready to come. If he wants to park down the street and sit in his car until he's allowed to come in, that's fine. He just can't come into the house.
It was all fake. Very fake. I would never think that he would fret that bad over her. It was beyond fake. He's not a super loving person, so for him to show that much emotion, you never saw them together show any kind of emotion.
As rumors of doubt in Dan's narrative spread, a sense of unease takes hold of the surrounding community, especially in the state troopers that once worked with him.
It was a big deal in the law enforcement community. When he was sentenced in 2015, the room was packed with ISP troopers that were supporting him. And I think it kind of rocked ISP when this particular thing happened.
Our community at the sheriff's office, there was very much a feeling that he had murdered her, and her family very much believed that he had murdered her.
Kendy was known and well liked by her friends, her co-workers, her family members. All of the people were very upset by this. Dan Howard's former employer and the law enforcement officers that knew him were shocked that this culminated into this level. And so I think for the most part, it seemed like everybody just kind of held their breath.
We just waited for a long time before he even got arrested. He got to go and work the slopes and come and go, and if you ran into him at Super One, you did everything in your power to avoid him.
2 years after the night of the crime, following a long and detailed investigation, police are finally able to present enough evidence needed to make the arrest.
It took detectives a lot of time to go through everything and piece everything together enough to issue a warrant. It took years. This happened in 2021, and we didn't go to court for several years. Thanks to detectives, props to them. They spent a lot of time on this case and dove through everything that they could inside that house and inside their relationship, so to speak.
We waited and waited because of COVID. Eventually what we did is we presented our case to a grand jury, and we received an indictment for murder and domestic battery. And after the indictment came down, we secured an arrest warrant for Dan, and we timed that. We knew that he was going to be in Alaska at the time, and we knew that he was going to be returning to Idaho basically that same day. And so we essentially waited for him to land, get off the airplane, and then come home. He turned himself in. He had a lawyer, we knew that. So it was all kind of coordinated, but we timed it so that he wasn't in Alaska with a warrant where he could just disappear.
58-year-old Daniel Howard is finally in custody for the murder of his wife, Kendy Howard. Now the question becomes, will the prosecution be able to convince the jury of his guilt, or will he evade justice once again? Athol, Idaho, April 2023. After 2 years of building a case against Daniel Howard for the murder of his wife, Kendy Howard, detectives are finally able to bring him to trial. Howard is charged with murder and domestic battery. Both parties prepare for the legal proceedings.
We start having hearings. We don't have to have a preliminary hearing because we had a grand jury, so we are straight into district court. We go into an arraignment where Dan enters not guilty pleas, and then we have to prepare for trial. At that time, we just have to make sure all of our witnesses are available. We have a few bond hearings. Dan wants to not be in custody for the trial, so there were a lot of arguments about whether or not Dan should get out of jail. In Idaho, you have a constitutional right to have bail. My office did not seek the death penalty in this case. Once the deadline passed where we did not file for death penalty, that made him eligible for bail. And so our judge set bail, and it didn't take Dan very long to post that bail. So now he's out of custody in the weeks and months leading up to trial.
Legal restrictions meant the jury are left in the dark about Dan's history, as the prosecution is blocked from bringing up certain details of his past.
We had a number of pretrial rulings about what could come in and what couldn't come in. Had Dan testified, I would have been able to use his prior felony convictions to impeach him. But he didn't testify, and so those didn't come in, and none of the evidence of his past crimes came in at trial. It was frustrating to begin with because we all knew that he did it, but we didn't have the evidence to prove it. And then it became almost like a hunt in terms of building more evidence. Ultimately put all that together, go to trial, get a conviction, and send him to prison for the rest of his life.
We were able to put on evidence of the domestic battery 6 months prior. A lot of times, those different crimes can be excluded from a trial. This very easily could have been 2 trials. We could have had one trial just based on the domestic in July and a separate trial from the murder in February. Fortunately, our judge let us put on evidence of both in the same trial. And so we were able to show the jury that he was abusive and that abuse continued until her death. Evidence of her body having bruises, evidence that these bruises were inflicted before she died, the lack of blood, the lack of suicide, the trajectory of the bullet, the fact that the gunshot wound was suffered post-mortem. All of those things, I think, just made it very clear to the jury that this was a murder. And of course, it all began with that phone call where he was fake crying to 911 and the cops when they showed up. We believe that the jury, from the very beginning of the trial, saw that body camera footage, and it was very obvious that he was faking.
Following his initial arrest, Daniel Howard is granted bail. He's being tracked, and he's being watched.
The judge set conditions of his bail. He was not allowed to have a firearm. He was not allowed to leave the state of Idaho except to go to Spokane, the neighboring county, which is where his attorney worked out of.
We as a department were watching him. We had people out there tailing him or watching him and watching the house. And he drove to the Spokane airport.
Even though the judge allowed him to go to Spokane, he was not allowed to be within a mile of the airport. He had to surrender his passport. He had to wear a GPS ankle monitor. And after the 2 weeks of trial, Friday evening, I received a phone call from detectives. They saw him leave his house. They followed him all the way out of Idaho into Spokane. They followed him to the airport. And when the detectives told me that he was pulling up to the curb of the car rental in the terminal, I advised them to stop and detain Dan. I got on the phone with the judge, and the judge authorized Dan's arrest. The officers searched Dan's vehicle and found a handgun, and they took him into custody. So Monday morning, of course, we want to tell the jury about what happened over the weekend. The jury had been advised not to watch the media during trial, so we were assuming the jury was largely unaware of what happened. In Idaho, we have really good case law that evidence of flight is evidence of guilt. So of course, my office wants to show the jury that he was attempting to flee. Dan's lawyer represented to the court that Dan was not trying to flee, that the gun belonged to his friend who was following in a different car. Dan put on representation through his lawyer that he had forgotten that he couldn't be at the airport, and the judge would not allow us to put that evidence on, so the jury did not get to hear about what happened that weekend.
Dan Howard's activities in the past and what his family has always said, or the people involved in his life, is that he did care very much about the money that he made. He did care very much about the money that he had saved and the things that he had built and obtained. So those would have been very, very important to him, and losing half or a portion of that would probably have made him very emotional.
Dan Howard was a very jealous individual, and I think most of his fits of rage came from that jealousy.
He was very stoic during the whole process. He typically looked forward. A few times he would look at me when I was testifying, but for the most part, he just looked straight forward and didn't make eye contact and really made no effort to say or do much.
I never saw any remorse in him. He did keep his innocence and stated that he did not hurt her and would not hurt her, but I never saw any actual remorse from him.
However she died, whatever the context of her dying, I'm sure he was taking steps and being methodical and calculating so that it would make it look like, and he would hope that we'd fall for the illusion that Kendy Howard took her own life.
Dan was described by the ISP captain here, Paul Berger, when he testified at trial. Paul went to post with Dan and knew him well. So we're talking back in the 90s. And he described Dan as a very capable officer, as an officer that you'd want by your side if things went bad. He was smart, he was strong, he was cold, he was hard. But Dan was also, as this captain described it, capable of losing it very rapidly and easily. He was not an empathetic person. He was not somebody that was kind. He was cold, hard, and ruthless.
With the trial over and the verdict in, the judge delivered the final sentence that would determine Dan's future.
He was convicted of the domestic battery. My office had charged him with first-degree murder. The jury found him not guilty of first-degree murder, but fortunately the jury found Dan guilty of second-degree murder, and he's eligible for possible life in prison. We respect the jury's outcome, but of course we do believe he committed this in first-degree murder. I think that the cover-up speaks to his mentality, and I think that gave the judge a reason to agree to give a sentence of life without parole.
The only remorse that he had was that he was going to spend the rest of his life in prison and not be able to access his money. The biggest takeaway is that ultimately somebody who thought that they could get away with murder was not able to and got what he deserved.
She was getting ready to leave, and he was not willing to give up his control. And so, in the ultimate form of control, he took her life. And he, I think at one point, believed he was going to get away with it because of how long it took us to build our case and to issue warrants. And so, for lack of a better word, I think he was a little cocky in that he thought he was smarter than us and that he could play us.
What he had to do to kill her was very cold. To beat her like he did and then to strangle her like he ultimately did, that's cold. But almost even worse than that is what he had to do afterwards. Take her clothes off, carry her up to the bathroom naked, put her in the bathtub, shoot her in the mouth, and fill the bathtub with water, and then go and clean up his crime scene. And after that, to call 911, and then to throw the fit that he threw in front of the police officers when they arrived.
It was a very sad case to prosecute. We were extremely happy with the outcome. We were able to put Dan away for the rest of his life, where he can't hurt anybody else. But it's frustrating because as successful as we were in court, we can't give the family back what they want the most. Kendy was a mom, she was a sister, she was a grandmother, and she was a friend to a lot of people.
She kept it so quiet that nobody would really know unless she really got into the details or lived in Athol, knew Dan. But when you talked to her, she just enjoyed life so much, but you just never really knew what happened behind closed doors. And when you listen to the case and you read about it, the fact that she was so happy and enjoyed life is absolutely incredible.